because they wrote that without any intention of playing it. But like back when I had a rock band back in the day,
Tannin. That's the tannin.
I paint apples from the and it took me a couple of years to not like it. It actually took me to sit until I saw George Clinton for me to understand, oh, that's what people mean when they say right?
You don't play with a pick either.
Right. And being rock and drum. Yeah. Oh yeah, the sound of it. David, have you ever seen their live?
Ever seen the film Spinal Tap?
They got soul.
Yeah.
Spinal Tap.
I'm not alone.
Have you seen the movie Spinal Tap? Oh my God. Who am I playing? I thought I was playing with professionals. Fitness is evident, and I admire it.
Is it March 16th or something? You gotta double check that. Okay, so not the 16th. Maybe the 6th. Checking my calendar here. Yeah, first week of March. Yep.
By the time you run the office,
I told him I'm gonna watch Spinal Tap by then.
yeah. Yep. You guys should go watch it together.
How can we do that? Like,
Well, you can sit in the same room. And then,
what? In 2025?
Hello. I overheard you joking about how you want your music to be received, and I thought I should tell him about in Maine there was a group, and he said, well, we've just put out a new CD, and if it doesn't go viral, I hope it'll at least go bacterial or fungal. You can borrow that.
As Unitarian Universalists, we believe truth is larger than any one book or way. Religion and science go hand in hand. Integrity requires freedom of conscience. Diversity is something to celebrate. In the struggle for justice, we come alive. Our highest aspiration and calling is love. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever path you are on, you are welcome here. The Great Teachers in Life by Jason Cook. We are seekers on a quest to discover truth and meaning. Sometimes we think we found it, wrapped up, glimmering with newness, straight off the intellectual assembly line. All the answers are right here for us and others if they'd only listen. But the truth has a way of coming in disguise, sometimes wearing rags and sometimes finery, but so often cloaked from our immediate sight. And sometimes that which we have rejected, that which we have let go of, or decided was only for others, but not us, can be our teacher. Let our time of worship be an acknowledgement of the never-ending journey toward truth and meaning, and our appreciation of those we learn from along the way. Once again, welcome to West Shore Unitarian Universalist Church. I am Lynn DiMarino with a crooked name tag. We have so much good going on. Check out the West Shore Weekly in your order of service about upcoming events and how you can get involved. I do have a quick announcement that did not make it into the order of service. I want to let you know that there will be an information meeting about the partner church trip to Transylvania in the fireside room today at 11:45. We are excited to welcome our guest speaker this morning. Reverend Beth Marshall is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist with a bachelor's in English from Bowling Green State University and a master's of divinity from Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago. This is where she and Reverend McCarr were classmates. And I'll tell you a little secret. This is also where she taught him how to make a proper gin and tonic. I still haven't had one yet, Reverend. She has served congregations in Southold, New York, Toledo, Ohio, and Canton, Ohio. She has recently served as a temporary targeted minister in Cleveland, Ohio, Erie, Pennsylvania, Traverse City, Michigan. She lives in Oberlin with her husband, Tony. Tony's here. Where's Tony? Hi, Tony. Tony Wilgus. Together, they are parents to 5 grown children and 9 grandchildren. You might remember Beth from her student minister days here at West Shore in the 1990s. Yes. Now, if you are here for the first or second time and you don't mind letting others know, please raise your hand so we can offer a special welcome to you. Oh, yes. Woo. While our children go to their classes, let's greet each other warmly. The greeting time will end with the sound of the bowl. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
When I was just 16, I stood away for a dream. Parker Street bus station, fair. And I tried to get it on. She just looked at me with scorn.
Today's reading comes from Teachers Everywhere in My Grandfather's Blessings by Rachel Naomi Rahman. I can clearly remember something that happened when I was in 3rd grade. I was walking with my mother on a downtown street in New York City, pushing through crowds on our way to where I can no longer remember where. I had just been put in a special class because I had done well on an IQ test, and my new teacher had told us that being in her class meant that we were brighter than most of the people in the country. As we moved through the hurrying crowds, I remembered this and was filled with an 8-year-old's outrageous pride. I told my mother that my teacher had said that I was smarter than most people around us. She stopped walking immediately and knelt down so that we were at eye level with each other. As the crowd flowed past us on either side, she told me that every one of the people around us had a secret wisdom. Each of them knew something more about how to live, how to be happy, about loving than I did. I looked up at the people passing by. They were all adults. "Is this because they're all grown-ups, Mama?" I asked her, taken aback. "No, darling. It will always be that way," she told me. "It is how things are." I looked again at the crowd moving around us. Suddenly, I wanted to know them all, to learn from them, to be friends. Here ends today's reading.
And now all are welcome to come forward to share from the heart in our community ritual for all that is our lives. Good morning. It is so good to be back at West Shore. And thank you to Anthony, wherever you are this morning, for the invitation. So very much has happened in the last several weeks. So much has touched so many of our lives that it would be wrong of me not to recognize some of the shared anger and grief and fear. It is taking its toll. However, my hope for our time this morning is that while holding all that has been happening, we find a way to reflect on how maybe at least some of it might be an uninvited opportunity. So with that in mind, we begin with the premise that every person we meet, everyone in our lives, as well as every moment in time, has something to teach us. And if that is true, and I do believe that it is, good people, we are living in a particularly rich and complex moment in time. On a Wednesday morning, not so long ago, about half the country awoke confused and grieving and angry. And the other half awoke feeling a clear sense of vindication and validation and triumph. And there is much that I have struggled to understand since that day, this dual truth being one of them, a dual truth that none of us can afford to ignore. Since then, I have had so very many questions, but the two that I'm finding most fruitful are variations on what lessons do we need to learn in this particular moment in time, and its corollary. What can this moment teach us? Focusing on those two questions has helped keep me out of the mire for the most part. It's keeping me focused on what one individual might possibly do to make a difference. It's bringing me back to the spirit of, while it's impossible to do everything that the times are calling for, it is important to do something, maybe just do one thing. Greta Cosby offers these words: sometimes when the bottom falls out of life, we are set free. And whenever that profound thing happens, we can expect to go through a process, sometimes a long process, a painful or very uncomfortable process, in which we let go of something and slowly learn to live again. And this is true no matter what we have lost: a loved one, a work, a hope, a vision, an image of ourselves, a part of ourselves. Loss makes artists of all of us as we weave new patterns in the fabric that is our lives. With that in mind, I have been looking to those who have weathered far more intense storms, and those who emerged on the other side stronger and wiser. I have been searching for those bits that ring true, looking for ways to weave those elusive new patterns and build new skills. Elizabeth Lesser's Broken Open, How Difficult Times Help Us Grow, is a familiar text to many of us. Rereading her thinking over the last few weeks, I could better hear how suffering and crisis transform us, humble us, and bring out what matters most in life. Nothing that happens can be ignored. Everything requires attention and mindfulness. This time, I could better hear her words, "We are broken open by change." Years ago, I wasn't ready to hear about being broken open by change, much less ready to absorb the implications. I did not want to be broken open, and I didn't necessarily want to change. But like a piece of Japanese kitsugi pottery, the places where we are broken have the potential to become our greatest sources of strength. Those places that have been healed, that have been repaired, are where we can shine the most brightly. It's a metaphor I've been holding on to a lot lately. In Broken Open, she includes a reflection by Rabbi Yehuda Fine, written after a medical crisis landed him in the ICU. Like many, he had previously wondered how he might handle devastating pain and if it would break him. Quickly he realized he was facing several hurdles: intense pain, his attitude toward the situation, and the possibility of using this crisis as a wake-up call. So with this in mind, his time in the ICU and the months of recovery that followed became an uninvited opportunity. It became a time of deep discernment, of focusing on the significant changes he wanted to make in his life and coming to terms with what mattered most. He wrote, "When crisis exploded in my life, the best of me was born. I found out what I was really capable of. I discovered who I really am." Rabbi Fine came out on the other side of his crisis stronger and wiser. He learned that even in the midst of a medical crisis, he had a choice of how he was going to respond. And having a choice made all the difference. Even when things seemed out of control, we have a choice in how we respond. It doesn't mean that it will be easy or that there aren't costs, but there is a choice. We can choose despair or despondency, or we can choose hope. One of the big lessons coming out of COVID and out of the last election cycle, a lesson that we are still learning, is the importance and the inherent difficulty of staying connected to those who experience the world differently, who vote differently, and who have other differences that we deem irreconcilable. And while there is much emphasis on differences, I believe every small effort toward unveiling our inexplicable mutuality has the potential for long-term benefits, for the long-term good. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a poem during the Vietnam War, and he wrote it in response to the growing number of refugees from Thailand who were flooding the shores of Southeast Asia. Decades later, maybe more so than before, his words challenge us. He reminds us of our interconnections, of how there is a part of us in each and every person we meet. These are a few lines from his poem, "Please Call Me by My True Names." I am the mayfly, metamorphosing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear water of the pond, and I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks. And I am the arms dealer selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, a refugee on a small boat who throws herself in the ocean after being violated by a sea pirate. And I am also the sea pirate, my heart not yet capable of seeing and loving. Years later, he reflected on how natural it was to take the side of the children, wanting to punish the pirate and the arms dealer. That was the easy response. Forcing himself to look deeper, he realized that had he been raised in the same conditions, he might have suffered a similar fate. And unwilling to condemn himself so easily, he wrote that while we may wish to believe otherwise, all of us, if we had been raised in different circumstances, in different environments, with different values and experiences, might make very different choices than we do today. His words are timely and incredibly challenging. If we can find a way to see even the smallest part of ourselves in each other, we may find our way through. Seeing small parts of ourselves in each other goes against one of the hallmarks of today's social climate, the speed at which so many are willing to cut off and cancel each other, people they disagree with. Enter Monica Guzman, author of I Never Thought of It That Way. She's also senior fellow for public practice at Braver Angels. And Braver Angels, as you may know, is the nation's largest cross-partisan grassroots organization dedicated to depolarizing America. I was excited to see a conversation on the website for the church from Braver Conversations. For those of you who don't know her work, Monica Guzman is a breath of fresh air. Her approach does not shame or scold, and that in and of itself makes it worth all of my time. Guzman is genuinely curious about how other people see the world. It's a curiosity born out of the complex circles and networks that define her life. Her parents immigrated from Mexico and became natural citizens while Monica was in high school. Monica is very liberal. Her parents, very conservative. She votes one ticket, her parents vote another. And while they vote very differently, they have dinner together weekly, and they watch election results together. And this alone shocks many of Monica's friends and readers. The foundation of her work is her staunch belief that much of the increasing political divisiveness we are experiencing is anchored in how very little we genuinely know about each other. She's deeply concerned that few of us demonstrate real curiosity about people whose whole worldview is not different from our own, but diametrically opposed. She believes that we judge people harshly, and when we do, we can't be curious about them, much less how they got to their beliefs. A real-life example. A man I know well is quite gifted at engaging conversations with all sorts of people, anywhere and everywhere. I've often thought that he has "talk to me" tattooed in invisible ink on his forehead. Part of his Sunday morning ritual is walking down to the local bakery to buy a plain dealer. Occasionally, if I'm lucky, apple fritters are involved. But more often than not, he is wearing a beloved navy blue hat announcing to the world his allegiance to a certain university in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Now, even in Oberlin, which is by no means a strong football town, he is often greeted by fans of Ohio State with good-natured ribbing and extended commentary about the latest game. he not so secretly enjoys every one of the encounters. The calls of "Go Blue" are rarer, but they do happen. So one Sunday morning, he makes his way to the local bakery for his paper, and he nods on the way into the door at two men sitting outside reading their paper and sipping their coffee. One of those two men is wearing a red MAGA hat. And upon seeing a man in Ohio wearing a University of Michigan hat approaching him, the one wearing the MAGA hat says, "That's pretty brave, wearing a Michigan hat in Buckeye territory." But without missing a beat, the response is no braver than wearing a MAGA hat in Oberlin. The three of them laugh, and they have been frequent Sunday morning coffee buddies since. They talk about things they care about. Some topics they see very differently, and others they agree upon. They talk about their children, their grandchildren, their shared history of going to Catholic schools together. They talk about sports and some local current events and things that they've observed in the community. He gently refers to them privately as the good old boys, and God knows what they call him, but the three of them talk, and they laugh, and they share coffee, and they share their thinking with each other on Sunday mornings. And maybe, just maybe, the world is a little better for each of them having some more contact with people that might be deemed the other. I have to believe that every small step helps. The key is they're talking with honesty and curiosity and respect. And those three qualities are key to Monica Guzman's work: honesty, curiosity, and respect. Take out any one of those three and the whole thing falls apart. I can almost hear my own spiritual hero, Father Greg Boyle, founder of Homeboy Industries, echoing the same sentiment in a slightly different way. He says, "Judgment takes up all the room you have for loving." Monica Guzman and Father Boyle are working in the same quadrant, if you will. They are helping people find their common ground, both working with the understanding that judgment takes up all the room we have for loving or for curiosity. The bottom line is we don't always know people as well as we think we do. And the answer, according to Guzman, is curiosity. She writes, "A radical kind of curiosity is going to save our relationships and eventually save our society. It is critical that we reject the answers the world gives us about who people are and what they believe. We have to ask our own questions. We have to get curious, because curiosity is a tool that we can aim right at things we don't understand." Acknowledging this idea of talking with people who hold opposing viewpoints can feel overwhelming and, quite frankly, full of emotional landmines. So she suggests starting with being one step more curious. And that can be as little as not even having a conversation with a person. When reading an article, an opinion article from the other side, you might ask yourself, what is the deep down, honest human concern being expressed here? Or what is the strongest argument on the other side? Or what can I learn by reading this piece? And that in and of itself is being more curious. She proposes starting small. She says, start with someone with whom you agree with on everything, except this one thing. Begin with someone you trust, someone who doesn't threaten your identity, and then move to a trusted friend with whom you mostly agree. Build your strength your skills, and your practice. And then, when you're ready, then you can build those bigger bridges with people you find more challenging. Jody Baylor tells this story about building bridges and finding common ground. And I've paraphrased it down for length, but I hope I've captured the essence. Goshen, Indiana, November 2002. A letter to the editor appears in the local paper, the writer expressing frustration with what she sees as local pacifist rhetoric. She was writing in part because her son was active duty military in Afghanistan, and she was concerned how other family members who might be reading these papers would react to this flood of anti-war sentiments. The following day, the writer of the letter gets a phone call from a professor at the local college. The professor, who was also an anti-war protester organizer, she was calling to invite her to coffee so that she might better understand why the pacifist letters were so upsetting. She also wanted to hear more about the woman's son, and she was upfront about not being out to change her opinion. So they met for coffee and spent the first hour connecting as mothers of sons. Quickly, they discovered that they shared religious convictions and a deep yearning for world peace. By the end of their meeting, they decided that together they would write another letter to the paper. In the opening of their letter, they addressed their very different views on the war, but how getting to know one another helped strip away layers of assumptions and stereotypes. They also each included a personal statement. The professor and protest organizer wrote that she will continue to oppose the impending war with a new awareness about how much pain and fear and love military members and their families experience. And she understands more deeply that we want the same things: peace, security, a world of promise for our children. And it was those concerns that led her to an opposition of this war and others. The mom, who had an active duty son in Afghanistan, wrote that she will respect and understand in a new way those who want to prevent this war, and asking them to remember that our sons and daughters who are trying to do the right thing are risking their lives to do so. She wrote, "I believe our troops need to know that we love and support them, regardless of whether we support the war that they are fighting." 20 years later, their efforts still model the curiosity and courage, the honesty, the respect and willingness called for, required to go into these hard places and engaging in the difficult conversations. There is nothing that says we must bridge the gap that divides us. There is no decree that demands we be curious about our neighbors, our families, our co-workers, the authors of letters, or even the guys at the bakery. But there is a hope that we might hear some of what these complicated times are calling for, some sort of action on our part. We may not be in a position of influence. We may not feel as though we have the power or skills or resources to enact change. We may be doing well if we can get ourselves out of bed in the morning, and I get that. But none of that can stop any of us from being one more step curious. The times in which we are living are calling for a greater level of courageous curiosity, born from the gentle reminder that we are all surrounded by teachers and teaching moments, some exquisite and some utterly devastating. Some bring lessons that are easy to learn, and others we resist with every fiber in our being. My hope is that in the days and weeks to come, we remember that however we define success will be measured in the acts of courage and curiosity, in moments of kindness and compassion. In those times, we open our hearts with honesty and respect. So may it be. Amen. Our closing hymn this morning is number 295. Sing out praises for the journey. Please rise. Our benediction was written by Anne Frank. I can feel the suffering of millions, and yet, if I look up into the heavens, I think that it will all come right, that this cruelty will end and that peace will return again. In the meantime, I must hold up my ideals, for perhaps the time will come when I shall be able to carry them out. Go in peace. Amen. Blessed be.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry with us until we meet again.